Have you ever dreamed about visiting Ohio? Me neither, but I had to go anyway. After getting to the airport before the sun clocked in and during my first cavity search of the day, I managed to swing by the Lincoln Memorial before hopping on my flight. On this trip, I'd be bringing my Nikon AD3 loaded up with some new Fuji 200. And before you ask, yes, I am in a shower. It's because I'm incapable of functioning during daylight, and this is the best artificial light in my apartment. Having already been up for 4 hours, I decided to take my first photo of the trip, and it did not turn out. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I think it's pretty clear I wasn't. With the first shot jitters out of my system, I decided to snap this right outside the rental counter garage. It's okay. There's not much going on here color-wise, and the composition is pretty average. I think it does improve slightly with a 1:1 crop. Quick side story, there was a lady on my flight who had forgotten her ID back at this TSA checkpoint, and she was very concerned that she wasn't going to be able to get back on her flight coming home. But the flight attendant said, no, you'd be okay. So she came on the flight with us from DC to Columbus. So I get to the rental counter, and the lady is at the register just next to me. And they're not giving her her car because she doesn't have an ID. She did not seem to be having a good time when I left. Anyway, after I picked up my rental car, Black Betty, I realized my phone wasn't going to survive all of the navigating I was going to have to do that day. So I had to stop at the local Best Buy because I conveniently left my phone charger at home. I like this picture a lot. That could just be due to the fact that I worked at Best Buy 2 separate stints in my life. The nostalgia could be clouding my view. It was finally time to make my way to the site that I was supposed to be visiting that day. And I quickly found out that Black Betty had the loudest wipers I've ever encountered. Shortly after seeing signs for a Honda plant and connecting it with the display I saw in the airport, I saw my first religion billboard and got the warm fuzzies for being back in the Midwest. Abandon violence, accept Jesus. Protect the babies. I've seen like a dozen of these. Then I finally got to my site visit and did, and then everyone laughed and it was time for me to head home. I had scouted out this post office using Street View before I headed out, so I decided to stop and take a few pictures. This last one's definitely my favorite. The collection box is clearly visible. The snow on the wood shingles adds some really nice texture. The sign is ever so slightly dilapidated, and on top of it all, we have an American flag on the side. Absolute perfection. Then I decided to stop at this nearby church because I thought it looked interesting. But I think the pictures turned out kind of meh. And then I stumbled upon the most S-tier restaurant combination imaginable. There's a Culver's right next to a Waffle House. Worlds are colliding. After gorging myself on the food of my people, it was time for me to hit the road again, but not before documenting the glorious moment. If these pictures don't convince you that the new Fuji 200 is actually just Kodak Gold 200, then nothing will. No other film leans so heavily into the browns. I ended up making a stop at this cool pair of striped water towers before heading back. It was definitely worth the backtracking I had to do. I don't know what possessed the local government to paint them with the stripes, but they looked absolutely amazing in the afternoon sunlight. And that was pretty much it for this trip, besides stopping for some dinosaur juice. And then I dropped Betty off back at the rental car garage. It was pretty smooth sailing back to DC. I even got there so early that I managed to get on an earlier flight.
Welcome to Washington, D.C. The local time is 6:55.
I was just happy to be back in an area with a functioning metro system. So that was my day in Ohio. Would I ever go back? Probably not voluntarily. It's not that it was bad. It's just that having grown up in the Midwest, I think there's other more interesting places to visit. But what about you? Have you ever visited Ohio? Do you live there? If so, why? Why is your flag shape so weird? And if you're not convinced that Ohio is just a weird place, realize that Ohio State University's mascot is a literal nut.